Hello again, everyone. It's Ziff Sistrunk, and we are live. And I have a special guest today. You're going to have to say your name for me.
Hi, I'm Ahmad Salim.
Ahmed, that's easy, right? Say it one more time.
Ahmad Salim.
Ahmed Salim. And he's my guest today, is very obviously. He got me here on time, too, he and his wife. I mean, I didn't actually think I was going to do it. I got it. But we always start the show off. Tell me your name one more time.
Ahmad Salim.
Ahmed.
Yes.
Did I say it right?
Yes.
Okay. Now let me tell you how I mess up people's names. I'll tell you. But first, when we start our show off, we always have a moment of silence for people who have lost their lives to violence here in the city of Chicago, the state, and the county. And we always have a moment of silence, if we will, please, for those who have lost their lives. And we thank you. I have an interesting young man today who is a health advocate, right?
Healthcare administrator.
Healthcare administrator. And you like the political process.
It's something I've dabbled in the past. It kind of led me to my career today, actually.
Okay. And tell me what type of health advocacy do you advocate?
So what I do for a living is I'm actually what's called a compliance professional. So every single hospital, every single individual that goes to hospitals has a certain number of patient rights, right? There's a certain number of regulations and rules that hospitals have to follow, and my job is to make sure that hospitals are following those certain rules and regulations.
Okay, you're talking about cleanliness and stuff like that?
I think that's more on the regulatory side, and that's an aspect of some of the people in the profession's job as well. Specifically, if you come into a hospital, let's just say, Ziff, you're inside of the hospital, right? You have a certain level of expectation of patient privacy, right? Like our nursing staff, our employees, physicians, no one can just decide to just take a picture of you, post it on Facebook and say, hey, Ziff Sistrunk is inside the hospital, right? That's called HIPAA, right? That is your right to patient privacy. So there's a number of different regulations that we make sure we have to follow, and it kind of gets a bit complex, but I always tell people it's important they understand and know what their rights are.
Now, what side of town are you from?
I live in I guess, what is that?
Bronzeville?
Yeah, well, it's like South Loop, Bronzeville. It's basically close to Cermak and Wabash. So.
Okay. Now, what other projects in the community can we put your hand on, and you can say you've been involved in? Well, have you been a community person?
Yeah, I've tried to. So, I don't advertise, right? That's not the point of doing the good work. But, I try to stay involved and active. I really go for mentorship, right? Youth programs, really focusing on making sure that, kids understand that you can make it, right? Don't let anyone tell you that you can't make it, right? Have a goal, set that goal, and anything's possible. I always, I was fortunate enough to go to law school, and I tell people, I speak to a lot of young kids, oh, wow, you went to law school. It's like, you shouldn't think that way, right? It's not tough. You can make law school if you just put your mind to it. Never let anyone tell you it's not possible, right? It is possible. Come talk to me if you wanted to make it possible, and we can figure out a plan to get you there.
So, are you a lawyer?
So I don't practice. I'm a regional director of compliance at a health system, so I oversee compliance for 4 hospitals in the state. But yeah, I did go to law school.
So he did answer the question at the end, because I was waiting. So what do you enjoy about being involved in the Chicago communities, and what makes you different?
Yeah, so I was born in Pakistan, moved to the Chicagoland.
Now, where you were born? Where?
In Pakistan.
Now, what is that? But it was not always named Pakistan. It was called Pakistan, right?
Well, yeah, people call it Pakistan.
And now it's changed to.
Well, I mean, in our tongue, we call it Pakistan, right? It's oranges, it's tomatoes, tomato, right? But you pronounce it Pakistan. People in the media, you often hear say Pakistan, but it's an elongated A, so it's Pakistan.
Pakistan.
Yeah, so I was born there, actually moved here when I was 2 years old, moved to Chicagoland area, and, went to college at DePaul and kind of really never left the city for about a decade until I ended up going to law school out in Michigan. But, the best part about the city, specifically the Loop, West Loop, a little south, all these areas, there's just a million different things to do, right? You never get bored, right? We were basically in the Loop or Financial District a little earlier, and we quickly drove out here. And what did we pass?
Yeah, that's right. We were in downtown Chicago. I'm trying to just let people learn who are you, and what is some of the things that you would like to see. How do you see Chicago changing? How do you see ways that we can begin to improve Chicago?
Yeah, well, so there's a lot of issues facing Chicago, and we all know first and foremost, if you want to make a city better, you want to make it greater. The first thing you focus on is, the younger people in the generation. So, right now, Chicago public school system is facing some major struggles, right? You see the mayor closing down schools in specific areas, and we both know those specific areas happen to be both in the west and the south side. And we're not going to make any accusatory comments of why that's happening, but I will say this: it doesn't help anyone in that environment when you're closing down a school, right? Kids should be able to go to a school, but more importantly, there should be resources allocated to schools to make sure the kids can learn, right? Teachers shouldn't be paying for toilet paper, pens, paper, books. I mean, that's just silly. There's studies shown that a child that is not up at a third grade reading level is statistically impossible to catch up to his classmates moving forward. And that's because they spend most of their time in basically pre-K, K, first, second, and third grade teaching a child how to read. And after third grade, it's shown that they now improve upon those skills. So if a child isn't able to read at the third grade level at third grade, and they're no longer teaching you how to read, they fall behind, right? So these are the types of things that we need to start fixing, in our city, right? School system first and foremost.
So if those of you, again, who are at home, you can call in at 312-738-1060, my guest. He's talking about ways we can begin to improve the city of Chicago and some of the things that we could begin to work together. How do you bring Chicago together? How would you bring Chicago together?
I think the first things first. You gotta focus on a certain goal, right? I feel like we're moving in 50 different places, and we can definitely blame the current political climate for that, right? I think in today's day and age, one day of news cycle feels like we've lived a month, right? So something big that happened last week may feel like it happened 6 months ago, and people start to lose interest and start to lose, any curiosity or, angst that they want to help on that. So I think the first thing we need to do is just realize that, right? President Trump has made things a bit more difficult, and things feel like they're drawn out, and, they just take forever. So when I was working for a congressman in California, I had the opportunity to sit on a literacy foundation board for the county. So I was fortunate enough to be the president. And, we quickly learned the city is a kind of a mirror city to Chicago. At one point, it had a very high criminal rate. It has high rates of, lack of education and literacy. So we realized that our public library system needed a little working. So we got together, a common core of people with a common interest involved that knew that the more education we got to individuals who typically weren't getting that type of education, the better our society would be. And we put together a ballot measure to increase taxes to get funding for our library system, right? We were fortunate to get this ballot measure passed, and it was for about $250 million over the course of 10 years, right? So that's a group of people coming together for a common good, and making those changes that will impact a generation. So I think it's just identifying what it is that we really want to fix and where we want to go.
Okay, so I need to pay attention to what you're saying, because you really are giving us some good information.
Don't know if I'm going to.
A little drawn out, but that's okay. I want to say what, but now I want to get you more poignant in what you're talking about, because we're talking about ways we can begin to improve the city. Do you see a difference in this city between the south side, the west side, and the north side?
Oh, I mean, anyone that says they don't probably isn't living in the same city or isn't fortunate enough to live in a different city than the rest of us, right? So, when you look at the city as a whole, you can clearly see that things are a bit, separated when it comes to racial backgrounds, right? So there's a great website that one of my friends who's an architect who does a lot of planning put me on to. It's called radicalcartography.com. So basically this website is a map of majority of major cities in the United States, and it breaks down the city based on ethnic backgrounds, right? So
Okay.
When you look at the city of Chicago, you notice that we have a large number of African Americans, basically almost everyone according to this map, either on the west side or the south side of the highways, right? So if this is the city of Chicago, right? So you have blue here, which is the African American color, and blue here. And then pink is for Caucasian. You see that primarily in the middle of the city. And then you see a portion of orange, which is down south right before 55, which is Chinatown. And then you see the Hispanic community as well, kind of scattered in the west side and then the north side. So, we've got some issues to do. I don't know if do you watch John Oliver?
Yes.
Okay, so he does a great breakdown on the education system in big, large cities who think that they're pretty liberal, and they actually have, probably more segregated school systems than places in the South that we judge often. And, this is just a systemic issue in our city that we just don't realize. And, we probably should start focusing on these.
Well, let's focus for a second on this caller. Caller, are you there?
Well,
Caller?
hello.
How are you there, caller?
Yes, my name's Paula. How you doing today?
Hi, Paula.
Hi,
Do
Paula.
you have a question for our guest, Paula?
Happy holidays, first of all.
Likewise.
Happy
to you.
holidays, Paul.
Yes, Mr. Pakistanian. How you doing today?
I'm good, Paula. How you doing?
I seem you've done pretty good with your life, starting out from where you came from.
Is there a problem with the way
Right.
he came from and how he is now? Is that a problem? Is that
No,
something
I
bad?
want to know. Right. I want to know what he's going to contribute to all of Chicago, all of Illinois. What can you help with your expertise to get these kids back on track? We all know we need more schools, we need more churches, we need more everything, we need more money. But when that money comes in, it's got to go to the institutions where it belongs to. So what are you going to contribute towards Illinois with your intelligence and everything? And I like your smile next to you, Mr. Man with the Cubs hat. You got a beautiful smile. Let me see.
What are you going to do?
Wait, my smile or his smile?
His smile.
No, his smile.
Whose smile?
I think she got.
She's gone. That's okay.
Well, so, when we talk about making changes, and, I think Ziff and I talked about this earlier, and I talk about this all the time. We all obviously have a duty to do what's right? It's all on us. If you succeed, you should be paying back to the community. But, we get so stuck on politics and our politicians, right? When today's society, it's now Republicans versus Democrats, right? People focus on Republican versus Democrat. No one's talking about the fact that, our city has a lot of issues. Our city is primarily Democratic. And I'm not saying I'm some independent, person. I'm a Democrat as well. But I understand that just because you're in a certain party does not mean that I have to turn a blind eye and say everything you do is right? We have people in our system who are failing us, right? I don't want to go into detail who I think is failing us because that's just my opinion, and we're not going to
Yeah, let's stay on improvement. She's saying,
but I'm saying
she wants you to tell her how.
You need to call your local
That's not what
officials.
she's asking. She's asking, how are you?
Yes.
She's not asking you to refer me.
But that's a portion though, right?
Okay, well, let me hear you out.
So that
in
is,
fairness to you.
That is a part of it, right? So as one individual, two individuals, my wife, whoever is trying to help out, we can do only so much, but we need to make sure that, our elected officials understand that we're not going to sit here quietly. People often think that their voice isn't heard. There's a lot of power that can happen with a group of people. And, and I know I'm going to a long-winded answer, but I'm saying if you have an issue in your neighborhood and say, you're seeing a high spike in crime, you're seeing the school system not being effective, get your friends together. It's all of our duties to work together, call our local officials, and make sure they understand these problems, right? We're too quick to just give up on things and not actually follow up on these issues. And that's what I'm trying to do, right? If you have questions about how to do this, I am here to help. If you have specific issues, I will listen to you and figure out what it is that you want us to do and guide you to that solution. I can't sit here and say that I can fix the entire city because I can't. I'm not going to pretend like I can. But, giving knowledge, giving the power and making sure people understand, if you call a certain political office enough times in a day with different numbers of people, they're going to start taking notice to the issues you're bringing forward. And the problem with our society is people just don't do that, right? People don't realize that that's something they need to do, and we need to go back to that small level grassroots type of change that, we all need.
Now, you say you left Pakistan when you were a little boy, 2 years old.
Yeah.
Just to let you know I'm listening to you. How is what you have observed is different from Chicago or whatever, but you probably couldn't say. But let's take this caller first.
Yeah.
Caller, go ahead, caller.
Yes, sir. How you doing? My name is Ray. I call most every week.
Oh, do you?
Listen.
Well, we got a special guest for you, Mr.
Hi, Ray.
Yes, you sure do. But listen, all the talk you're talking about is great if this was a perfect world. But it's not. Parents don't give a care about their kids anymore. They don't even care if they go to school. All they do, if they do go to school, come home, jump on the couch, and get on that game. Boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, when we were growing up, I'll bet, when we were growing up, you, myself, the guy next to you, would do our homework, watch TV a little bit, that's all, and go and eat, and that's all. Now, whether they do their homework or not, they don't care. They're going to get on that game, and they're going to stay on the game. So all the education that you guys want to get people, you're not going to get it because the parents don't care. It starts at home. As far as the politicians, it took a long time for us, I'm Hispanic, African Americans, and everybody else to get the majority of the aldermen. And nothing's changed. Not a thing. It's only gotten worse.
Okay, hold on now. Hold 1 second. Let him jump in. I want you to hold. Don't leave us. Keep him on the air.
Okay.
What is he saying?
I think he's saying that there's clearly a generational, difference, right? I mean, you're right. You see today that kids are playing video games and probably not taking an emphasis in school. But, you can argue that video games and, computers and social media is kind of a future that we don't understand. I mean, I'm not going to put myself, I kind of understand it, but not completely. But, I think we just can't give up on that hope, right? We can't give up on these kids. Ray, it's Ray, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Ray. So I think that's the thing, right? We gotta keep hope alive, right? I know things look dark, and I don't mean to sound cheesy and too movie-like, but the truth of the matter is, even if the parents don't care, we got to make sure that these kids have that opportunity to go to school, right? You're never going to know if a kid wants to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a firefighter, a school teacher, or whatever, unless we give them that opportunity to succeed. And, we can't give up on it. And yes, they are playing their video games, and yes, they are watching a lot of Netflix and Hulu, but, it's important that we give them these opportunities to do so, and let them then decide what it is that they want to do with it afterwards.
Ray,
Okay,
you say what?
Okay, I didn't say to give up on them. You misunderstood me.
I apologize, Ray.
But what I said, and what I'm saying is this: why would you want? You could give $1 million a student, and they still wouldn't go to school. But you could put a game. But you put a game in that school,
Wow.
and there'd be 1,000 people trying to knock on them doors to play the game. They don't. And libraries, Chicago has some of the best libraries in the world.
So let me act. Let's
There's only one that's full, and that's Washington Library. All the rest are empty.
let's let him answer.
What are you gonna do?
What he's basically saying games are bad for kids.
I mean, I'm not, I don't know, I can't say without any scientific backing or data to show you whether or not there's any change. I can tell you this, Ray, the gaming and, kids playing games, it's kind of the way the future is, right? You talk about all sorts of different industries. We're talking about self-driving cars. You're talking about virtual reality. I mean, this is a lot of stuff that's the technology in the future that's going to be what these kids are actually working in, right? So,
Okay, why a game instead of a book? Can you tell me that? Why don't they study and then go play the game? But no, they want to play that game first, and that's that. If they do their homework, that's fine. If they don't do their homework, that's fine.
yeah, I agree with you. They should be doing their homework. If they're getting homework and they want a, career path in video games or virtual reality or whatever technology, obviously you have to put in the work. You shouldn't be doing, you shouldn't be playing video games. But like I said, I don't know any empirical evidence that can show me that these kids are, statistically more or less just sitting on their couch and playing games. It may just be a, select generational thing.
You're from Pakistan, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, listen. Let me tell you something scientific. Look at the grades of the students now. They're in the gutter. You can't tell me that you don't have any scientific evidence. The scientific evidence is in the schools. How they keeps getting worse and worse every year.
Right.
That's
So,
just-
Ray, that's a good point, and you're right.
Don't
There,
tell me about all
there is,
science.
yeah, no, there is proof in that. But so when we talk about the fact that our science scores, our math scores, and our reading scores are statistically going down on a year-to-year basis overall in the world, you can attribute that back to the fact that, you know, there's a lot of schools that don't have resources, right? You look at schools in both the west and the south side of Chicago. You look in Detroit. You look at a bunch of major cities in this country. You're seeing schools where, you know, they're cutting down class hours, or now you have an extreme number of kids sitting in a classroom, right? The teachers, you know, aren't given the supplies and the prep that they need to properly teach these kids. So there's a lot that goes into it that is on the back end, that's on us, right, as a society to make sure that these kids have that opportunity.
Right, Ray, we really appreciate you calling. We don't have that much time left, but I want to sort of pinpoint this guy to do something, because we got a couple of minutes left. And did I tell you guys that this was my last show for the year? And I had a special guest today, he and his wife, and I appreciate him so much. I want him to take a minute, and I want to do something that I've never done with people might guess. Say you was a congressman. How would our life be different?
Well, I think, so here's, I can sit here and talk, and you know I can talk. I can sit here and break down a gajillion different points, but I think we need to start with, you know, the main points. First and foremost, if you're going to be an elected official, no more taking money from outside corporations. If you're legitimately going to be serving the people in your district, there should be no reason why you're taking money from any form of corporation. We have individual politicians, elected officials, who are knowingly taking money from companies who are defrauding the government or who purposely do things that are illegal, and they take this money. And these guys are our watchdogs, right? So why is this appropriate? You know, I often get into conversations with people who just, you know, will argue on that point and say, well, how are they going to get money? It's crazy to me that in 2017, we still think it's crazy for a politician not to take corporate money, right? I mean, it's just, it should not be allowed, right? Start getting money from certain individuals, right? So that's just the campaign finance reform side. Second, we talk about Congress, right? How many times on TV have you seen a congressman that's only been elected a couple terms, right? It's always the old, long-time career politicians, right? Those are the politicians that seem to be pushing the agendas. They have the power to force out anyone they don't want into this little elite club. So start putting term limits on, right? The President of the United States has a 2-term limit. And most people don't know this, if that wasn't a part of the original part of the Constitution, right? That was actually put in the Constitution.
After Roosevelt.
In the 40s, right? There were 2 other presidents in the United States history that actually ran for a 3rd term who weren't successful. It just so happens that President Roosevelt was another 2 times, and then after that they decided to pass an amendment, right? So if the president has term limits, Congress should have term limits, right? You got to keep people honest, you got to keep people on top of their game, and you got to give a level playing field for people who don't have the opportunity to typically run for office.
Okay, now let me ask you another question. I want you to look at my rule, and you got a minute, and tell them as a parent, how would you improve life here in Chicago?
I mean, so...
Or as a resident?
Yeah.
Take about 30 seconds.
So, to me, honestly, everything is putting resources back into our communities, right? If you're talking about the school system, the library system, we need to give kids not only education, but the opportunity to move ahead in life. And yes, some kids may not appreciate that opportunity, but we can't take that away from giving it to the kids who deserve that opportunity, right? Your life will be substantially different if someone comes to you and gives you the opportunity to go to a school that actually cares and wants to make sure that you succeed. And, you know, we need to start putting our focus back on the youth, because it's a generational thing, right? We can change it and make it for the better.
Okay, great. I appreciate you
Thanks,
and your
Steph.
wife, and thank you. You already know I was a singer, right? I used to love, who was it? She used to say this here, Barbara McNair was her name. And she used to end our show, she said, "Where have the time gone? Where have the time gone? Can't believe an hour's gone by. But standing here with you, doing what we do, my, how the time has fly. This was the last show, and I had a special guest. He told us how he would improve life as a congressman and as a parent. And I'm telling you how you can improve your life today, tomorrow, and forever. My mom always said, if a task once begun, never leave it till it's done. Bid the labor, big or small. Do it well or not at all. keep this guy's name in mind. What's that name again?
Ahmad Salim.
Ahmed Celine, as if Sis Drunk saying, we'll see you in a few months. Goodbye, enjoy yourself, and thank our producer today, his wife. And our staff back there in the back. I gotta know their names. Thank you. Good night. See you in a few months. Thank you. Bye-bye.